Welcome back to Mountain Connections. Up next, we're going to talk about a topic that isn't always talked about but needs to be. We're going to talk about how to deal with grief during the holiday season. I'm so excited to be sitting down with Julie Cluff, who is a life coach and a grief counselor. Julie, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining us on our show. So kind of give us a little, introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background for what you do.
Yes, well, my name is Julie Cluff, and I, like you said, and I am a grief coach from Build a Life After Loss. And today I wanted to talk about how do we help our friends and our family who are suffering during Christmas and New Year's, this holiday season, so many traditions, and it brings up a lot of emotion for people.
Yeah, I can definitely see that there's a need for this, and there's definitely a need for to talk about it and to be able to know, kind of what to do and how to handle these types of situations. So I'm so glad that we're sitting down and having this conversation today. We can recognize that holidays are going to be an emotionally triggering event. How do you anticipate going into those? What should the families do with that information ahead of time?
Well, I definitely think it's most important that when we have family or friends that are particularly suffering during this time of year, it might be their first holiday without a loved one that has passed away, or they might be going through a divorce, or there might be financial things. There's all kinds of reasons why people might be experiencing grief, and it's super important that as family and friends that we listen without judgment. That's the key. That's the key.
I think definitely people need to feel like they've been heard and that their voice, that it matters. So I love that.
Definitely. When we listen and we don't try to offer advice to make them feel better, then, because when we do that, when we say, oh, you're better off without him or something like that, then we're discounting the pain that they're experiencing.
Yeah. And we definitely don't want to do that. We definitely want to be an open ear and an open shoulder.
Absolutely.
So that's great. So you gave us 3 simple tips that are kind of going to be our guidelines for this holiday season. Let's go through them one by one.
Yeah.
So number 1 you gave us is be willing to listen without judgment, which is kind of what we just talked about.
Absolutely.
How would you say you would handle that situation maybe if they're offering or they're coming to you for advice? Maybe they want you to listen, but they're also kind of looking for some validation or something back. How would you go about that situation?
Well, first of all, validate their feelings. And saying something like, I can tell this is really painful for you, it validates. It doesn't discount what they're experiencing. And then make sure that they're actually looking for advice. You can even ask. This is my favorite thing to do, is say, are you looking for some feedback, or are you just wanting someone to listen? Yeah. And then asking that question, we can get clarity on whether, and then I like to always couch it with, if it was me, I would. So we're not saying, do this
directly at them. You're offering your advice from your personal perspective.
Exactly.
I love that. That's a great tip. So number 2, how are you doing today? Is that just like an open-ended question kind of thing?
Yeah, so a lot of times when we see somebody that we haven't seen for a while, and during the holidays sometimes we are seeing people that we haven't seen for a while, and we know that they're going through a tough time, we often say, how are you doing? And that's such a broad, open-ended question. But if we ask, how are you doing today? Then it's an opportunity for them to just talk about what's happening today. Well, today's painful, or today I'm actually doing really well today.
Today's that key word in that phrase.
Yeah.
That's great. And then number 3, I love that you said respect their needs for their alone time. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, during the holidays, during Christmas, during New Year's, there's a lot of social events. And so we want to invite. We don't want to leave them out, but at the same time, we don't want to pressure them. A lot of times people will say something like, but I really want you there. You have to come. You need to get out of the house. And we tell them what they need, and they know what they need. So expressing to them your desire to have them there without that added pressure to be there is really important.
And I think they'll feel more invited that way, because I feel like it wouldn't feel maybe so overwhelming. I know with holiday parties, or maybe neighbor parties, or there's a lot of functions that come with the holiday. So I think that's good that you're respecting that sometimes just not everyone can do it all. Exactly. And not everyone can be everywhere.
Yeah. And they might need to leave early. They might say, I can come for a little while. But then when they decide it's time to leave, we respect that.
I love that. So do you help mainly children in grief, or do you kind of what's your clientele like?
Well, I work with groups and I work with individuals. and I help people to kind of see where they're at and where they want to go. And it's an action, we have an action plan to kind of unlearn the things that we've learned from society that aren't helpful and relearn the things that are helpful when we're grieving so that we can stay on that path to healing.
Very cool. Now, if people wanted to reach out to you for help, where could they find you?
buildalifeafterloss.com.
buildalifeafterloss.com.
Yes.
I think you've given us some great tips. Any last pointers for going into this holiday season?
Well, just, if you are suffering, if people are suffering right now, if you're the one that's suffering, then be sure to give yourself permission to feel everything. So you can feel joy and be okay with that, and feel sad and be okay with that too.
Perfect. I think that's great advice. You definitely gave us some good tips to look into and to anticipate for the holiday season. It's not often a topic that we talk about, but it's something that we definitely need to be aware of. So thank you, Julie, so much for being here this morning with us.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, we have a lot more coming up on Mountain Connection, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this short commercial break.